Hey, everybody. Hope you are doing well. We've got Thursday night football. Week 2 in the NFL begins tonight with Minnesota at Philadelphia. We can talk about that. Anything else that's going on. Ryan in Sactown joins me as well with 2 new hips. The man is as good as freaking new. Isn't that right?
Good as new, ready to go, better than ever. Yes,
You look
indeed.
good, man. You look good. You don't look like you're in pain anymore. You lost some weight. You look good, man. You look good.
Thanks, Napes. It's amazing what can happen when you just get a bounce that goes your way and you just build on top of that and build on top of it. So thank you.
Yeah, I need a bounce to go my way. That's good. I like that. When you get a bounce to go your way, that's good. I like that terminology,
I think your bounce is coming, my friend.
Yeah,
Not
I
on the
think it
golf
is too.
course. It's
I think
coming.
it is too. The Jets didn't get a bounce their way.
No.
You and I talked about this last week, and it's a very small sample size, but the Jets offensive line, could they protect Aaron Rodgers? And, he got pressured on his 2 dropbacks, and obviously on the second one, he's out for the year. Now, everyone wants to blame the turf, and I understand. I understand that the turf is a issue, but I said this on a rant today. If the offensive guard had gone out the year with an Achilles, you think the NFLPA would have said anything?
Absolutely not. I can't remember the last time the NFLPA stepped up and talked about an injury, period. It's been a really long time.
Yeah.
But Grant, the turf's going to be an argument that goes either way. You put grass in, and now you've got a college game maybe the night before an NFL game and a messy field. But I can't remember a time that offensive line and defensive line play has defined the NFL as much as it has in the last couple of years, specifically week 1 this week.
Well, here's the other aspect. A lot of players don't play during the preseason, so the offensive line doesn't really get a chance to gel. That's number 1. And number 2, because of the salary cap, the depth is very poor on NFL rosters. So if you have an injury on your offensive line, the backup is not very good, and it really shows. And we're seeing teams without offensive linemen that are going to backups, and they're not able to get the job done. So, yeah, that is part of the NFL now. I mean, the salary cap and how much money quarterbacks make and skilled players, wide receivers, and edge rushers, cornerbacks, and you don't have the money left to build your offensive line, and we're seeing the results of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on top of that, offensive line is one of those things that requires continuity. And I get football as a whole does, but your calls, and when you talk about a backup, they're not getting very many reps in practice, Grant. And then you throw them out against some of the greatest athletes, freaks that are on the defensive line and D ends. It's just really hard. It's a tough position for a player to be put in.
Sea-Dog says players have been complaining about the turf for years, especially MetLife. That is very true, but guess what happened? Last year, the Super Bowl was played in Arizona, and they had grown that grass for 2 years, and it looked like an ice skating rink. So there's no simple solution to this, okay? And I made a rant on this today, and I think it's very important. If we're talking about MetLife, there's no question there has been a excessive number of knee injuries on that turf, and now an Achilles. So I would agree that that's not the best playing surface in the world for the players. But here's the point that I was trying to make. You have 2 teams that play in that stadium, plus you have college games in there. Let's take a look at Sunday night. If you had natural grass and it rained throughout the entire Giants-Cowboys game, what would have that field look like for the next game when the Jets played 24 hours later against the Bills, right? The field still would have been wet. It would have been sloppy. And it's not like you can just re-sod during the week. So if you get a stadium like that, where you're in the Northeast, and now you have another huge tropical storm / hurricane barreling up the eastern seaboard that is supposed to bring a lot of rain to the area, and it has been raining the last couple of days. Matter of fact, the Yankees and the Red Sox were rained out on Monday, and then they were rained out again yesterday, okay, in the Northeast. So, yeah, you can cover the field, but guess what? They used to cover the field at Candlestick Park, and when they took the tarp off, it was like a mud pit. Again, I know I'm going on and on, but Ryan, the point I'm trying to make is there is no perfect solution, because if you want to put natural grass down, let's say at MetLife, that's fine. But you got 2 teams plus college games, and it rains a lot, and it's going to get cold. The speed of the game is going to be taken away eventually with a field like that. So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's football, right? If, like you brought up a perfect example, if we're talking about the Super Bowl, Grant, and you are growing a field for 2 years, that field better be perfect, right? But there's a lot of teams that play on artificial turf, and you don't see an ACL every day. You don't see an Achilles every day. MetLife, yeah, maybe there's a few more injuries than most. They need to take a look at that. But at the end of the day, it's part of the game, and it's a debate that there's no answer to.
Well, again, you can't have a field like they have in Arizona where they roll out the field when
Right.
it's not in use. Okay, that's you can't do that at MetLife. You can't do that in Foxborough. You can't do that in Chicago. I mean, so I'm okay with natural grass. I really am. I think it's fine, but don't complain when you get to December and it's a mud pit or it looks like a golf course that has bare spots all over it. Okay,
Yeah.
don't complain about it. Listen, Ryan, it really wasn't that long ago, if you remember, that there were multi-faceted facilities where you had baseball. Wasn't that long ago when the Raiders played, okay, when the Oakland A's were still going on, and they played on a dirt infield, right?
Yep.
All right. They played on the dirt. They didn't cover up the infield. And so, again, there is no perfect solution here. Unfortunately, AstroTurf, or it's not even called AstroTurf anymore, artificial turf is not the best thing in the world for athletes. I think we can all agree on that. But if you say everyone needs to go to natural grass, don't be complaining after a torrential rainstorm when the field looks like a mud pit. Okay?
Yeah, damn right. And Grant, I think we can also agree on turf today is much different than AstroTurf back in the day. That was
No
basically like
question.
playing on concrete. So
Yes.
they're
Hey, in
taking steps.
Philadelphia, remember what they said in the vet in Philly, that they were literally like playing out on the parking lot. It was like asphalt. So you're right.
Yeah.
There's a big difference now.
Huge.
Yeah. All right. Riley talks about the old Met in Minneapolis. Not only that, do you know that they had the teams on the same sideline at the Met? They weren't across from each other. I used to talk to Jack Youngblood about that. He played in many games when the Rams played at the Vikings in the Met, and 15, 20 below, and the field was frozen and the players were on the same side of the field. So yeah, again, we've come a long way. Listen, players are going to get hurt, but if we can minimize knee injuries and Achilles, then yeah, you should try to minimize that. I don't think anyone's arguing with that. But the point I'm trying to make here, there is no simple solution.
Exactly right. There's no simple solution. And again, it's football. It's going to happen. And everybody wants the players to be safe. Everybody wants their best interest. So
All right.
we'll see what the NFL does.
All right. Tonight, Minnesota on a short week at Philadelphia. The Vikings lost to Tampa at home. They got beat badly in week 2 last year in Philadelphia. But the Eagles tonight are without 3 key players, a running back, 2 starters in the defensive backfield. So that could impact the game a little bit. I think Philly still wins this game, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than it was last year when I think the final score was, 27-7, if I'm not mistaken. Minnesota was never really in the game. I think this game will be a little bit closer tonight than that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Grant. Minnesota seems to step up in these games where you think it's going to be obvious they're going to struggle. I know Kirk sometimes gets the MO that he doesn't play well in prime time, but I think Minnesota is still a decent team. And let's be honest, the Eagles did not look great on offense last week.
No, they didn't.
The Patriots definitely, Mac Jones's Patriots outplayed them. Granted, Bill Belichick had 5 months to prep, but big difference. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a competitive game. And I think it's ultimately going to come down to who can stop the other team on this one and who's going to make that one mistake at the end of the game.
Ryan, you're going to see, I think the first 2 to 3 weeks in the NFL season, you see a lot of sloppy football because of the lack of participation in preseason games. So generally speaking, it takes 3 to 4 weeks before you get a real good read on a team. Like, for instance, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals aren't as bad as they showed in Cleveland. They were horrible. I mean, they scored 3 points against the Browns. And I think the Browns are a pretty good team this year. But the point is, a lot of people think Cincinnati's the best team in the AFC, and they could barely get a first down. They could barely move the ball up and down the field. And a lot of it was because of their offensive line. I don't expect the Bengals to struggle like that for much longer. They're too good. They got too much talent. But when you put everyone on the field for the first time, those things can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you drop Joe Burrow into a messy situation with the weather. He's coming off of a calf injury. He has a career low 2.6 yards per attempt in week 1 against the Browns. You're not going to see that again. I think everybody just needs to get their feet under them, especially the teams that we thought would be good coming into the season. And we'll have a better sample size, like you said, come week 4 or 5.
I think one of the biggest games in the NFC this week is Seattle at Detroit.
It's got to be.
Everyone's riding Detroit for what they did a week ago last Thursday, opening up the season with a big win at Kansas City. Now they're home, and Seattle, as you well know, got their pants beat off them by the Rams, and you called that. Good job on your part on this show last week. But I expect that to be a dogfight. I don't think that's going to be a lopsided game in any way, shape, or form. Pete Carroll's team always seems to respond in big spots like this, and it doesn't matter if the game's at 10 in the morning Pacific time. They always seem to play well in these games.
Yeah, good point, Grant. And here's the funny thing about the Lions. Both of us were not surprised that they won last week. We thought that they could pull that off in Kansas City. Both of us would not be surprised if the Lions lose this week, because the Lions have to prove it to us. They need to show us that they can do it week in, week out. And whether you like it or not, Seattle is still a physical team. Bobby Wagner had 19 tackles last week in a loss, career high. So they're going to be ready to play, and that's going to be a fun game to watch. And the Lions are really going to have to back up that performance in KC.
I think another big game this week that I'm really interested in seeing is Cincinnati at home against Baltimore, because of how poorly the Bengals played last week. Last year, since he did start off 0-2, you don't want to repeat that. And then another game has the Chargers. I don't know if you got a chance to watch much of that game, but that shootout with Miami, that Miami Chargers game was an absolute dandy. That was a great football game.
It was a great football game, and I'm going to take it a step further. If I'm Brandon Staley, I'm going to start looking over my shoulder at Kellen Moore, because that offensive performance that he put out there and the game plan he put out there was absolutely excellent. But fun game to watch. I actually thought Chuck Pagano on the Pat McAfee show said it best today. He said, if I would have been in the locker room coaching the Chargers and we played man coverage without a safety over the top on Tyreek Hill all game, the guys would have thrown their helmets at me.
Yeah. I mean, is that unbelievable or what?
It's crazy.
I know.
Yeah. But that Miami team, Grant, there's something special there. They are fast.
Yeah. Well, the Chargers are on the road against Tennessee. I expect them to get that win to go 1-1. I'm looking at some of the other games this weekend that I think are interesting. The Jets-Cowboys game would have been a hell of a game, and now all of a sudden I think it's a ho-hum game. I think the Jets are going to have trouble scoring more than 10 points against that Dallas D with Zach Wilson at quarterback. I think that's a tough spot. I wasn't that impressed with Dallas's offense either. I mean, I think that's going to be a very, very low-scoring game. But, boy, can you imagine the build-up with Aaron Rodgers going into Dallas, the big game of the week, but it's not as big as we thought it would be. Doubleheader on Monday, New Orleans at Carolina. Carolina's without two starting offensive linemen already. Then you have Cleveland at Pittsburgh. And, boy, Pittsburgh looked awful. I give a lot of credit to San Francisco. They were as good as any team I saw in week one on both sides of the football. They were outstanding. And anyone that still doubts Brock Purdy, you don't know what you're watching. The guy's the real deal.
I'm not ready to say he's the real deal. I think he is excellent. I think that he plays in an offense, though, that is very friendly to the quarterback. What Brock Purdy is great at, Grant, is making the right decision quickly. He knows, he scans the field, and he takes what the defense gives him at times. And that is what you need to do in a Kyle Shanahan offense. And to be quite honest, that can make you great in itself if you are in that offense. So Brock is great, but I'm not ready to go there.
Okay, but you know what? You can't judge Brock Purdy as if he's the starting quarterback on Tennessee, okay, or the Giants, or he's the starting quarterback for San Francisco. Just like you can't hold the offense that Bill Walsh had for Joe Montana with Jerry Rice and John Taylor and Roger Craig and Tom Rathman and Brent Jones. I mean, you can't say, well, gee, if Joe Montana had been playing on Tampa, he wouldn't have been good. You have to go by what we know. He's playing in a system that is quarterback friendly. I would agree with that. But you still have to make the reads. You still have to be able to read the defense, okay? You still have to be able to make the throws. You still have to be able to run the offense. And I got to tell you something, Ryan, he's doing that magnificently.
He is, Grant. You are right about that. And another thing that he is doing magnificently as well is he has command of that team and command of that locker room. There is just a different swagger on that team when he's on the field. And that's half the battle at the quarterback position.
All right, Rhino, should I tell people it's that you got a new camera lens and it's making you look slimmer or what?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Got a haircut, shaved the beard, lost about 15. But feeling good, guys. Feeling good.
You look good, buddy. I'm really happy for you. Sea-Dog says, tough to say in week 2, but the Giants are basically playing for their season on Sunday already. They are, because they play San Francisco a week from tonight, and they're going to lose that game. Then they come home on a Monday and play Seattle. If the Giants lose on Sunday, I think their season is over. They have to play Miami. They got to play Buffalo. I mean, they got a lot of tough games coming up. So I would agree with you. This is a must-win game already for the Giants in week 2. They're not good enough with their schedule that looms ahead to make up a lot of ground. And you got to also figure you're not going to finish ahead of Philadelphia or Dallas. So your only chance is a wild card. And, speaking of wild card teams, I'm not ready to predict who's going to be a wild card team. But boy, I'll tell you, Jordan Love played very well for Green
Yes,
Bay.
he did.
I was very impressed. Now, you could say, well, they only played Chicago. Okay, well, you can only play who's on your schedule. I still thought he had a very solid game.
I thought he played absolutely great. Moment was not too big for him. And I think Green Bay has a lot to be excited about. I think that offense is young. I think they believe. I think it's going to be a fun year for them. And let's see how he follows it up. I know it's status quo. We say 3 or 4 weeks, but to me, he looks like somebody that's probably not going to be going away anytime soon. Yeah. I like what I saw.
All right. Paul says San Francisco is playing like it's mid-November and everyone else looks like they're playing in mid-September. I wouldn't say everyone else, but I would say that Pittsburgh looked like they were playing. They took apart Pittsburgh. Absolutely took them apart. And now you got the Niners and the Rams, and the Niners have done a great job. We talk about matchups, right? You mentioned this last week about how the Rams have dominated Seattle, even though Seattle has finished ahead of them in the standings a couple of those years. It's the same thing with San Francisco and the Rams. It doesn't seem like it matters what the Rams do lately with San Francisco. The Niners always seem to win. Now, I'm well aware they lost the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, but they were an interception away from winning that game. Just seems like the Niners really have their number.
Yeah, they do. And especially for a division opponent, that's saying something when you have their number like that. And I mean, it could be a year very well where the Niners have everybody's number if they perform like they did in week 1. They just look head and shoulders above pretty much anybody else that I saw play in week 1.
Well, somebody says if the Rams can keep Matt Stafford upright and they beat the 49ers, I don't know about that. Are the Rams Super Bowl contenders if they win that game? No, nobody's a Super Bowl contender in week 2. All right. I'm exaggerating a little bit. I think you understand the point. At some point, the absence of Cooper Kupp is really going to add up to that team, and we don't know how long he's going to be out with his hamstring issues. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right. They beat Seattle. All right. Let's see. If the Rams do win on Sunday, then all of a sudden people are going to be talking about them again because they'll be 2-0 in the division, and they'll beat a team that most people feel is by leaps and bounds the best team in that division. So if the Rams win on Sunday, maybe the tune will change.
Yeah, they would have beat the 2 teams that were in the 2-horse race to win the division, basically. Yeah. And every year, Grant, we talk about it. There is a team or 2 that nobody expected to be good. Who knows? Could be the Rams.
That's right. And then you have a Green Bay. And, again, I'm talking about them because there's such an unknown with them because of Jordan Love. But Green Bay now, okay, they go on the road and we'll see how they fare at Atlanta because a lot of people are all grown gaga on Atlanta. Yeah. I'm not one of those. Let's see how Green Bay does in the dome with Jordan Love, the Packers at the Falcons.
Yeah, Atlanta's running game is strong, and we all know that that is the key and a quarterback's best friend in Desmond Ridder for Atlanta. But the Packers, they can come out and really grab that division. I know it's not a divisional game, but Atlanta, it's kind of put up or shut up, to be honest, because I don't know if I'm not buying it. I'm with you 100%.
All right. Looks like Darren Waller's going to play through his hamstring injury, says Sea-Dog. It really won't matter if the Giants' offensive line can't block anybody. It really won't matter who's lining up at wide receiver. It will make no difference. Here's a Raiders fan chiming in saying, all I know is even if my Raiders lose this week, they'll still be number 1 in the AFC West. It's a typical Raiders fan. They're going to have a tough time going to Buffalo after the way Buffalo lost. And I got to tell you, Josh Allen looked terrible. And we talk about this coming in. He's a turnover machine, and I'd be real concerned right now if I'm a Buffalo Bills fan with how my quarterbacks played last year and then how he looked on Monday night. And credit to Josh Allen for after the game saying, hey, that loss is on me. I lost that game for my team. But, he didn't try to, deflect the blame. He took it all on himself, and good for him because he is the reason why they lost.
Yeah, I think it's good that you did that, but you can only do that so much, Grant, before you lose a team or lose a teammate. You talk about some of the turmoil with him and Stephon Diggs, but Josh Allen, there's no middle ground with him. He's great, or it's like, what did he just do? What was he looking at? So he's got to bounce back, and he's got to find a way to play more steady for that team to be successful.
All right, and then you want to talk about a guy already being on the hot seat, and I understand what I'm saying. But if Washington goes into Denver and beats the Broncos, okay, Russell Wilson is going to be on the hot seat. You know it, and I know it. And percentages statistically, he looked pretty good last week, but he only averaged 4 yards of completion, and most of his receptions were to running backs underneath. He was unable to get the ball down the field. Again, if they lose to Washington, you know what the talk's going to be on Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be bad for Russell. What do they call him? Bag of potatoes, or that's what he looks like. He's changed his body style. He's not able, as you said, to get that deep ball off. And everybody's turning to Russ, right? Like, what's Russ going to do? Is he going to make that special play? And you got to question, is the magic gone? Because I don't think Sean Payton, as of right now, has enough to turn that around with him.
Sea-Dog says, is the reason that you're tougher on Allen than Burrow because Allen's bad play goes back to last season? Well, there are several reasons. Allen has not, if you're going to match Allen year for year to Burrow, I don't think you can compare it. I think, first of all, we all got a little carried away with how great Josh Allen was 2 years ago in the playoff game that went to overtime against Kansas City, because it was flawless quarterback play. I mean, it was something that we really had not seen before in a long time. And so we keep on remembering that game. But since that game, he really has not played well. I personally would take, and I said this on a podcast earlier, I think Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in football behind Patrick Mahomes. I think Burrow is like great. I would take Burrow over Josh Allen any day of the week.
Yeah, the moment doesn't ever seem to be too big for Joe Burrow. Sure, he had his challenges this first week. He wasn't being protected, first week struggles, whatever it may be. But he's Joe Cool for a reason. He's tough as nails. And again, he went in there and played from day one as a rookie and just absolutely dominated and turned that franchise around in many ways. Same can't be said for Josh Allen. There's been a bigger learning curve there.
All right. Again, if you want to throw a question our way, we would love to do that. Don't forget about some of our sponsors. We are grateful to have them. Ryan and I are going to be at Bennett's tomorrow, their West Side Grill in Rockland. Can't wait to go there and get their fine food, prime seafood and steak. Don't forget about their weekend prime rib, their weekend brunch, 60 different types of wine available by the glass. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com to check out their menu and everything else. That's Bennett's West Side Grill at the Blue Oaks Town Center in Rockland. Thursday night football. How about this? Easy Grant with Raider fans. Let me tell you something, Raider fan. Okay? Really? When's the last time you won a big game? Huh? When's the last time you won a playoff game? Huh? When's the last time you were in a really meaningful game? Okay, you could say the year before last in the playoff loss against Cincinnati. When's the last time you won a playoff game? Were you alive yet? Were you born? Or did that come after your arrival date on this great planet? Just curious. So I'm going to get on the Raider fans because your team has been horrible, awful for a long, long, long time. How's that for you?
Hey, Grant, the one thing you cannot get on the Raider fans about is their fandom. They are so loyal, good or bad, to that team, and I respect the hell out of that.
I personally think the Raider fans are the least knowledgeable fans of any fan base I've been around. I think they're great fans in terms of supporting the Raiders. I've said this, and I'm going to continue to say this. I believe if you change the Raiders' colors and logo, okay, to teal and white, you'd lose 50% of your fan base, okay? I have a lot of fans that are Raider fans. They can't name you one starting offensive lineman. They can't name you two starters on defense. A lot of the fans that I know that are diehard Raider fans love the team and support the team, and that's all fine and dandy. But when it comes to the knowledge of their team, they don't pass. I'm sorry. That's my experience with the people that I know who are Raider fans. They don't know anything about their team. They know nothing about them. They really don't.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You can be passionate and not knowledgeable at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Well, I totally disagree with this. I find Kings fans to be unbelievably knowledgeable, I find Kings fans to know their team inside out. So I totally disagree with you on that.
Yep. I would go the other way. I would say almost Laker fan you could say that about as opposed to Kings fan.
Yeah. Well, again, we're not talking about the behavior in in the crowd. Again, here's one. We're loyal and pretty respectful. I went to the 49ers playoff game last year against Seattle and saw some pretty disgusting behavior. Here's the reality, okay? Because of social media, because everybody now with their camera phones, there's disgusting behavior in every stadium in America, it seems like, every week. And it really is sad to go to social media and see all the brawls that are going on in our sporting events. Baseball, football. What the hell's wrong with people? Why do you have to fight? Like, why? It's a shame, and I see it every single week, Ryan. It's awful, and I see people getting arrested. Did you see the fight the other day where a guy was sitting on the chair and got cold cocked 4 or 5 times? Well, because of social media, the guy that did the punching got arrested and got charged with felony assault.
Yeah, as he should, 100%. I mean, and we're not saying this stuff didn't happen back in the day, but now it's almost like cool. It's fashionable, instead of, if you see a fight going down in the stands, Grant, instead of going to break it up or get a security guard, what's the first thing you do?
You're on your phone.
You're on your phone.
I know it's a joke.
So until that changes, until society changes in that way, we're going to continue seeing it.
Well, JT Brick can say whatever he wants, and I love JT. And JT is a good friend of mine, and I've known JT for 30 years. But JT's wrong, okay? He's wrong. He's wrong. Now, I've heard JT talk about the Raider fans, and he's 100% correct about how passionate they are and how they love their team. I don't disagree with that. But their knowledge of the team, not very good. I have a lot of fans that are Raider fans. I can't even talk to them about their team because they don't know anything. How about this by Sea-Dog? He's right. The report that the Rockets are looking to trade Porter Jr., who would want to take that PR nightmare? Of course, you saw the charges that he's up against for felony battery, strangulation, things of that nature. Yeah, I don't understand that, Sea-Dog. I don't even know how accurate that is, to be honest with you.
Well, if it is accurate, shame on the Rockets for even thinking basketball right now. That's all I have to say about that.
Yep. Amen for that. This one, most violent game. I was at a Friday night baseball game at the Stick. Dodgers were in town for 3 games. Listen, there's violence, unfortunately, at our sporting events. We saw the horrific episode at the parking lot at Chavez Ravine with a fan who was brain damaged, permanent damage years ago. I can't remember the gentleman's name, so forgive me for that. But we live in a really messed up society right now where the violence at our stadiums goes on a regular basis. It's really sad. It really is. I personally think that, we need to get more strict with fan behavior that is that's inappropriate. We need to get stricter, and it's a shame. And again, I'm not naive. I've been going to games since 1962. I've seen it. 99% of all of these fights are alcohol induced. Okay. Now, do you think they're ever going to stop selling alcohol at the games? No, they're not. Do you think they're ever going to stop selling beer? And do you think you're going to say you can't tailgate? No. I mean, so I understand the reason for it. Almost every one of these fights is because you have intoxicated fans. But it's a shame that people allow themselves to get that way and then start a fight.
Yeah, and there's nothing you're going to change about the alcohol, like you said, at the stadiums. But, it just goes to getting out of hand. It's unfortunate because it doesnent just ruin the time for the people that get into the fight. It ruins the time for the people around them.
Yeah, the name is Brian Stowe. Thank you for that. We really appreciate it, Riley. Grant, I know you watch all NFL games Sundays, but which ones will you keep a close eye on? I will say a personal note. We lost a pillar in the community that I lived in for 25 years by the name of Vince Minnie. And Minnie had a gym called the House of Pain, Minnie's House of Pain. And when my older son was in high school, we used to get up every morning at 5:00 before first period, and I would get up with Trent, and we would drive to the garage of Vince Minnie's house, where he would have a unbelievable makeshift gym. And there were a lot of high school students there. There were adults there, and he ran his gym out of there until he opened up his gym at the business park in El Dorado Hills in a huge building. And I used to work out at Vince's gym every time I was in town. And a lot of people in this community did. Vince played college football at Temple and played professional football with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Vince tragically and suddenly died last week. And we are having, when I say we, there is a memorial service for Vince on Sunday at 1:00 that I will be attending. So I will not be watching any 1:00 games, which includes the Giants, to pay tribute to this man's great life, to share a story. And I don't know how it happened, because Vince is a New Yorker and, again, went to Temple, and, he played for the Eagles. He was a diehard Cowboys fan. And I know that Vince would have been on my case Sunday night, would have been blowing up my phone, okay, as we always kidded each other when the Giants and the Cowboys played. But so for those, and I will tell you something, Ian Book, who started at Notre Dame, went to Oak Ridge High School, and then played in the NFL, and was so great to see him play on that Monday night last year for the Saints. Ian was with Vince all the time. Every time I was at the gym, I saw Ian Book. 5:15 in the morning, Ian was in there. Okay. If I used to go late in the afternoon or early evening, Ian was in there. Ian was a religious workout participant at Minnie's House of Pain. And Vince used to do a lot of work at Oak Ridge High School, volunteering to help out the kids and stuff. So we lost a real pillar in this community in El Dorado Hills. And I just wanted to pass that on, because he was not only passionate about what he did, he was a great human being. And I will be paying tribute to him on Sunday at 1:00. So I won't be watching any of the late games. I'll watch them on the computer later that night or the next day, but I won't be watching live. But to answer your question, if I were going to watch games this week, I think I'd watch Cincinnati and Baltimore. Okay. I think that the Baltimore-Cincinnati game to me is really intriguing. I think Seattle and Detroit is really, really intriguing. Those are two of the games. And I also would watch the Jets to see if they're able to protect Zach Wilson. And if not, I don't think it really matters who their quarterback is.
No, it doesn't. And I'm with you on two of those three games. I will say this about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. I do respect that he came out early and said, by all accounts, I'm coming back. So the Jets have a game plan going forward, and they hope to build around Zach Wilson this year. But that's going to be a tough one for them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sea-Dog says, props to Adam Silver for finally doing something about load management. Better late than ever. I talked about this yesterday on my Listen App show. It is better late than ever. It's long overdue, and they ought to call it the Pop Kerr rule, because the reason why they're having to do that is because of Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr. Just the way it is.
Hey, even the players, Grant, they've started to do a little bit more outside of the game. I don't know if you heard about Steph Curry. He flew a fan out to spend some time with him. Some other guys have done similar things because they missed a game or they had load management that night. So good for the NBA. Let's see if it actually works, Grant. It's fines, right? So who knows? But that combined with the other rules put in place with the for midseason awards or full season awards, 25 games.
And we ought to be careful where we throw our blame at. A lot of this has nothing to do with the players. A lot of this is organizational decisions. True. And their trainers in conjunction with their general manager and a coach. Very often they don't leave it up to the players. So a lot of times we're very hard on the players when it's not their decision.
Exactly right. And sometimes it's not even the coaches. We're talking about AI and analytics these days. But I mean, players, Grant, you're around them for 32 years. They want to play usually.
Yeah. Question that's been floating around a lot lately. Do you have a problem with NBA champions labeling themselves as world champions? I don't have a problem with it because I don't care what they call themselves, but they're not world champions. World champion is when you win a world event. If you win a medal at the Olympics, a gold medal, you're a world champion. If you win the World Figure Skating Championship, you're a world champion. All right. If you win the 100 meters at the Worlds, you are a world champion. because you're competing against others from around the world that are the best. All right. The NBA are not world champions. All right. They're not the NBA. They're not world champions. They're the champions of the National Basketball Association. I don't lose sleep over it because I got more important things to worry about than what a league calls themselves. But I know there's been a lot of talk about it lately, and there's been a lot of venom thrown. I just think people need to calm down a little bit and stop getting so upset when somebody makes a remark that you disagree with.
Grant, I think that's more of a July-August conversation, right? When it's slow time in sports. But yeah, I'm with you. I think world champions applies to Olympics and things that are worldly.
Absolutely. Your dog's got a world champion bark.
Do you see me muting this mic back and forth? I'm like, Gordo, stop.
That's all right. It's
My
all right.
bad, guys.
It's good. It's good live TV. All right. So who do you have tonight? Philadelphia or Minnesota?
I'm going to break a different way, and I'm going to go Minnesota. I think Kirk gets it done. I think they bounce back after the loss to Tampa Bay. I'm not sure if the offense is going to look great for the Eagles. Minnesota can have a stout defense at times. So I think that it's going to be a good game, but I'm going Kirk Cousins, and like that.
I am picking Philadelphia to win the game, but not cover the spread. So in the pick'em pool, I picked Minnesota because I'm taking the points, but I don't think they're going to win the game.
Well, you're pretty knowledgeable, Grant. You're second. You're tied for second in the pick'em pool after week 1.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, we've got 9 tied for second, and we have 1 person in first place.
I didn't even look. I didn't even. You know what? I didn't even pay attention. I didn't even look. So I'm not. I do this for you guys. I'm contributing, but I don't care. You know what I mean? So I'm glad. Okay, good. How'd you do, partner?
We are tied. We both had 10 points.
Okay.
So,
all right. Because I was going to say the person that won week 1 would have their lunch bought for him tomorrow. So I guess we're tied. So we got to each pay our own way. Huh?
Yeah. We'll push it until next week when we eat at Bennett's again for the 3rd time, probably.
I think Philadelphia will win, and I think that Minnesota will cover. I hope it's a good game.
Yeah.
I really do. Because I thought, I thought last week was a hell of a game with Detroit and Kansas City. I enjoyed watching that game.
Yeah, it was a really, really fun game. And, it's early in the season. Usually it tails off later in the season with Thursday Night Football in terms of the quality.
All right, so next week we're going to start talking some NBA on this show, because every player on the Kings is in town right now, and they're working out every day at the practice facility, getting ready for the start of training camp. So we're going to start getting into the NBA next week, and we're going to have some new things. Ryan and I are going to meet tomorrow and go over some things, and we'll be able to let you know what we're going to be doing. The best way to be kept abreast of everything that we're going to be doing is make sure you subscribe to the channel. All you got to do is hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified whenever we schedule a show. Don't forget to hit the like button, the thumbs up, and we greatly appreciate that because we're going to be doing a lot of content this coming season around the Kings, because this could really be one fun year for the Sacramento Kings. I mean, last year was unbelievable, but I think when you look at the additions to this team, when you look at the West, I mean, I think the Kings are right there. I don't think they're better than Denver, but other than Denver, I like their roster a lot. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you. We talk about the backup center position last year, right? And look at what they've done in the offseason. JaVale McGee, he knows how to play with up-tempo teams. Look what he did in Golden State, and now you've got 2 solid backups to Sabonis. I think this team's set, and you said it on, I believe, your podcast, Davion Mitchell. That's going to be the key. Can he be the guy that just pulls that second unit together?
Absolutely. Hey, don't forget about any plumbing issues or repairs. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. Just go to New Works Plumbing at the phone number 916-713-1010 or sacserviceplumbing.com. Remember, New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. All right, buddy. You have a great night. I'm going to get ready to flip the TV on, watch the game, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds great, Napes. Looking forward to it. All right. Have a good one.
Sounds good. Good stuff from Ryan in Sactown. Appreciate all of you for being here on If You Don't Like That. And I hope you enjoy the game tonight. All right. Until next time, Grant Napier is saying so long and oh boy.